What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with you all today. Going to be doing something maybe a little bit different than normal today. Before I get to that, I definitely wanted to note, make sure you guys are turning your notifications on. I know I haven't made a lot of videos very consistently, but I have set kind of a goal to do a video per day for myself here on this channel, at least like Mondays through Thursdays. And I did find something pretty crazy that I was going to share today, but I think I'm going to wait until tomorrow because we're going to be writing an article from Genfinity's end. And for those that have been here since the beginning with the crazy deep dives and some of the stuff that we found early on, this is kind of in alignment with that. It's definitely something a little bit bigger that I'll be sharing with you guys tomorrow that I think's pretty crazy. So set your reminders for that. Before we hop into today, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I have not just vanished from the crypto space. I've been doing tons of interviews for the past few years with Genfinity, which is my company, with some of the major enterprises, conglomerates out there across the board, and some of the kind of solutions providers for them, as well as tons of kind of projects across the digital asset space as well. Today, we're going to be doing some maybe breakdowns of some of the short videos of PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, obviously one of the big four, second biggest professional services firm in the entire world. We're going to tackle XDC Trade Network here and show you a clip. So we'll be diving into trade finance, digital documentation. We've got BEEAH Group. BEEAH is the largest sustainable waste management organization in the entire Middle East that I interviewed, and we have a clip from that. Boston Consulting Group and Constellation as well. If you guys like any of this content, I definitely recommend go to genfinity.io. We probably have, if I had to guess, we probably have more content on Hedera. Obviously, we work within Hedera and a bunch of these layer ones. Probably more written content on Hedera than anywhere throughout the entire digital asset space. If I had to guess, I would say somewhere upwards of 200 articles, and that's probably way lower than it actually is. Same thing with, you can see here, Algorand, you can see PricewaterhouseCoopers, you can see upgrades or updates to Constellation Network. There's a bunch of XDC content on here. And then we have some more kind of general crypto news. So staying on top of what's going on with the SEC, branching out into Avalanche. We've talked a lot about Ripple. You can see Hidden Road right here. Our podcasts are uploaded in here as well. So go to genfinity.io and at Genfinity.io if you want to catch some of the latest podcasts. Like, I don't even have any clips from Deloitte on here yet. I literally just interviewed Deloitte this morning. So that was a pretty interesting one as well. So yeah, I'm going to hop into this. I hope that you guys enjoy these clips. And this is something a little bit different. So tell me down in the comments if you like this stuff. But this first one is with PwC Europe's blockchain lead. He wanted to have kind of a big focus on failures across digital asset in the digital asset space, why we haven't seen more real world adoption, and what real world adoption looks like. So I'm going to play this one first.
Glad that you brought this point. So I think with Hedera, we are working really on the topic of sustainability, which is at the moment, very much hot because of the incoming regulations. And I mean, as I already discussed about, one of the key use cases is the digital product passport, right? So digital product passport, we spoke quite a lot about the battery, but there are a number of regulations like textile, electronics. Those industries are also coming into the next 5 years in place. The regulations are coming in place, right? And also not to forget, a lot of
so I would say pay attention. He's talking about digital product passports, so kind of track and trace of literally products that we use every day. But the more important thing there is that, what does blockchain offer from a transparency, from a traceability standpoint, and is this going to be something that's wanted by these institutions and enterprises or the clientele, or is this going to be something that potentially is mandated through regulations? And if it's mandated through regulations, and they're already trialing this stuff out, and the solution, encompasses distributed ledger and some of these networks, this was under the purview of kind of a Hedera-driven space and the Hashgraph Association. And you don't have to use this just under the purview of Hedera either. I mean, think about whatever networks you're interested in and where their relationships lie and what they're working on. they may mandate through regulations, using distributed ledger and blockchain for some of this stuff. So
products like palm oil, wood. So I think that also comes under the EUDR regulation. So it's basically the deforestation regulation where, the suppliers need to prove, how they procured those stuff. And I mean, what I have experienced with Hedera, they have a very sophisticated and a very simple and clean approach, right? As I was mentioning before, that you don't need to talk much about the technology, right? Because the business doesn't need to understand the technology. And I think I have worked on multiple, opportunities with them where they had a very clean approach where we can explain to the CXO, like, okay, that's the thing how you work. So I think this is really going to be a key game-changing element or use case for Hedera, to be honest, along, and that's why we are working also with them to enable those supply chain use cases. So I mean, it's a big topic of digital product passport, but there are a number of regulations which you can solve, under this umbrella. So I think there is EUDR, right? There is EUBR, so better regulation. Then there is EU Green Deal, right, where there are reporting compliance. So I think depending on how, I mean, there is no one size fit all, right? I think depending on the size of the company, what they want to do, where they stand, what is really the current existing IT infrastructure, we can enable that and define how we can solve this particular technology, because I think the key bottom line is how do we enable the whole ecosystem and the value chain to get on board and have this data transparency.
So again, under that context, you can check out the PwC, the Hashgraph Association interview that we did. It's linked right within this article on genfinity.io. It was about a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation. There's definitely some more clips from that as well. I'm going to move on to, and definitely check out what PwC is working on. There's a sustainability accelerator right now. This was PwC Europe, so you can definitely go to pwc.de and check out all the stuff that they're doing as well. I'm going to move on to XDC Trade Network. This was an interview with Sunil. I found this clip pretty fascinating as well.
Survey from ADB, the 2022 published number, trade finance deficit is $2.3 trillion. I mean, look at this, $2.3 trillion worth of transactions, trade never happened because trade finance was not available.
So for those of you guys that aren't aware, essentially the trade finance industry globally has kind of been monopolized by the big banks, which means that small and medium-sized enterprises, oftentimes when it comes to financing for trade, do not get financing for trade. So when they say there's a gap, and the numbers range anywhere from $2 to $7 trillion, trillion with a T. There's a lot of trade finance that just isn't happening, just literally because the big entities have monopolized it, and the SMEs or the small and medium enterprises have kind of got left out of the value loop. And you kind of hear here what XDC Trade Network is doing to fill that gap.
So we are created basically to plug this gap. What we do is we bring absolute real-time visibility to this trade so that folks, those who are not doing trade finance today, can come forward and use the technology to participate in trade finance. We create the entire set of trade documents using a standard called Milliliter, Model Law for Electronic Transferable Record. We work with partners to create these digital documents, and we have 8 partners live across multiple countries. When these documents are created, they get now raised on XDC Trade Network as requests for funding. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, who is providing liquidity on our network? It is anybody who is interested in doing trade finance. So we onboard liquidity providers. So these are the lenders, those who are, we KYC them. As of today, we KYC them based on MAS, which is Monetary Authority of Singapore, KYC guidelines. But we are also opening up KYC based on other countries, Central Bank of UAE, Central Bank of UK. We look at adding more and more liquidity providers. So that's the partnership we're talking about. We even have interest coming in from the banks because banks see us as a good source of origination. Let's say you are a bank in, I'll pick a country, let's say Australia, just giving an example. If you have visibility of trade originating from India, and this Australian bank can have a look at these transactions And if they want to finance them, they can do so on our platform. That makes the power of the platform bringing liquidity to anybody who is requesting from any country. There are continents like Africa where there's so much need of trade finance, and those corridors, the yield is anywhere between 18 to 24% per annum. So we can match these requests from anywhere. When we onboard lenders and borrowers, after we do the KYC, then the only thing in between is creating these documents, validating this document, verifying them, and doing the settlement.
So it's pretty fascinating. I mean, this to me, like if I look at, you guys will have to bear with me for these transitions. I've never done a video like this before. So, but XDC Trade Network, like the XDC ecosystem is really fascinating because like I know, you know, there's so many different industries that are affected or going to be affected by blockchain and distributed ledger technology. And when you look at like the trade finance space, there's so many different things that go into that. Digital documentation, the compliance aspect that's necessary. You heard Sunil mentioning, you know, the KYC, KYB aspects that go into it. Getting in at the ground level, like during that interview, you talked about like boots on the ground are so essential in these different countries and different jurisdictions to actually solve some of the pain points. Because when you think supply chain and transactions, I mean, sometimes there's hundreds of entities or individuals that touch a supply chain initiative from kind of inception to fulfillment. XDC has an ecosystem that is, I've said this before, like publicly on X, and take it with a grain of salt from me, because obviously, like, you know, Genfinity is sponsored by, you know, a lot of these ecosystems. But XDC has one, I haven't seen as comprehensive as a solution from the trade finance standpoint and all of blockchain and distributed ledger outside of XDC. Like they've got so many different facets kind of nailed in, and they've really spent a lot of time developing out everything that kind of makes the processes work. So yeah, but I mean, again, it just goes to show you, like, there's so many different industries that are being affected by blockchain and distributed ledger. I'm sure you could go on to Genfinity and check out the, I think we've done a breakdown on XDC Trade. Let me see if I have one here. Yeah. So this was back in, looks like February we did this interview. But this is the whole kind of breakdown of what XDC Trade Network's doing, the full interviews here as well. I definitely want to mention, go to our YouTube for Genfinity and check out all these full length interviews. I'm not even going to get through all these today. We did Constellation Network updates. We did Algorand Masterclass and Accelerator. We did Boston Consulting Group, Internet Computer, Hedera DeFi with Chainlink. This BEEAH interview that I was talking about. So please go to Genfinity at Genfinity Media on YouTube too, and check it out. I know there's just a lot here to get through, but I'm going to get into BEEAH Group next. And this one was really fascinating to me because BEEAH, you can see here, driven to create a world that's better for generations to come. They developed in-depth expertise across 5 future-focused areas: environment, energy, technology, real estate, and healthcare. This interview, I think we did maybe a month and a half ago. Still very relevant. I always see crossover too. So I'm not going to share with you a clip today about the overlap between Genfinity, Internet Computer, and Hedera, but there is overlap, and there's like working groups going on right now. But during this interview, I think it's Khaled. Yeah, it's Khaled. The group CEO of BEEAH Group mentioned that they're exploring both Hedera and Genfinity for some of these sustainability solutions in the Middle East. This is their office building. BEEAH's office building is like one of the smartest buildings in the world. It's pretty wild. They're building like a crazy smart hospital as well. Maybe I'll share it with you guys for a second because it's pretty cool to see if it loads. So these are some of the images of this hospital too. Pretty wild stuff here. But yeah, BEEAH Group is huge. I'm going to share with you this this clip as well. So
the whole BEEAH ecosystem will be concentrated there. What do I mean by that? So when we're looking at the construction, looking at the road base, we're looking at using road base coming from.
So he's talking about a smart city that BEEAH is literally, like, they're building a fully functional smart city.
Recycled rubberized asphalt from our tire recycling plant. when we're looking at some of the other road base, we're looking at the construction waste. So we're looking at using a lot of the recovered material in building the city. We've already appointed the architectural firm Hadid Architects, the same firm that designed our building is now designing the master plan. The master plan for the city is actually around the headquarters that you see here. So this will be announced in the next 2 months or so, the project. But we're also looking, okay, how can I power the city? So yes, building it, I'll use construction material. But how can I power it? I want it to be a net zero city. So now across the road is all my recycling facilities. So we have our waste to energy, has 30 megawatts. We're now building phase 2, another 30 megawatts. And keep in mind, 30 megawatts is enough to power 20,000 homes. So now we're looking at another plant. Also, our landfill is located there. That's going to have 120 megawatts of power. So we'll be able to power the city. Also across the road is there's the sewage treatment plant, as well as the industrial wastewater treatment plant. So we'll be able to take treated water and use it for irrigation. So for that, so to create the greenery and landscaping around the city from treated water, power from renewable energy, construction from recyclable material, and then we're looking at, okay, we'll power all our EV chargers that we actually provide. To ensure the mobility is in place. We're looking at how to use AI to create a better quality of life in the city. So this city will have retail component, will have boulevards, parks. It'll be a fully self-sustainable city and a model of how a city of the future could look like. It's more of a town than a city, but we call it a city. Because it's going to have approximately 2,000 units. A mixed-use development. It's going to have some office space. So it's an exciting project, and to be able to work on such a project and try to imagine with the partners we're working with, we are really imagining what that future would look like with all that's happening around us in terms of technology. And the generations that are being brought up in this new age, they think differently. The ones that were brought up in the internet age and now in the AI age. So we're trying to imagine how would they live and how would they, move around the city. And we're trying to imagine that we're also in parallel building a twin city, a twin digital city for this. So we even imagine, okay, should we have digital identities, so decentralized digital identities for every resident of the city, and what value would that person get from having that identity? And this is where blockchain comes into place. So we're studying, and this is where our discussions also with Hedera are coming into place. We're starting these decentralized digital identities. What services can we provide? And in parallel, building that metaverse was a thing a few years ago, but we do feel with how the speed of compute and AI that there's going to be a lot of valid use cases coming up, and so we're building for that now. We're trying to be future ready of these kids that were raised in Minecraft and living in these digital world with their friends. When they start working and start living in their homes, that's the environment that they're used to. So we're trying to imagine and trying to figure it out. We don't have the solution, but we're trying to get the city future ready.
So let me share with you guys real quick, because we did an article on BEEAH here as well. And there's more to these interviews. Like I said, guys, I mean, these are like little short snippets. This BEEAH one was a really kind of fascinating one. I think it just, I don't know. It's really crazy to me how so many different people and so many different industries and so many different players are really, just innovation. And how, even not just even distributed ledger and blockchain, but, the convergence of artificial intelligence, which obviously gets a little bit scary if you think about it. But there's all sorts of different things coming together at once. I kind of wanted to lead out with, well, let me do this one real quick. So this is Urs. Urs is at BCGX. BCGX is the tech build and design arm of Boston Consulting Group. I don't know if this is the clip that I have here, but when I did the interview with Urs, I was like, I've been deep diving into like a bunch of networks, certainly, as you guys know, Hedera for like years. I didn't know that there was like a trial that Boston Consulting Group and BCGX did alongside Hedera for like literally wholesale settlement of wireless roaming charges, like on our cell phones in Europe. I thought it was super fascinating. This clip, I think, is about kind of what real world adoption looks like. I know we see a lot of like subnets and private networks and side chains right now. This should give you guys a little bit more of insight into like what some of these might represent. Because I know there's a lot of speculation that we see, and people are just like, "Oh no, it's this," and there's everything's secret. And I always find it so comical. Like, people with big platforms in this space have the capability of going and actually interviewing the people that are doing these integrations. Why not just go and interview the people that are doing the integrations to actually find out what's being built instead of just speculating? And we're all here to speculate, but it's like you can literally get answers on a lot of this stuff. So this is BCGX and Urs. Do these kind of private networks represent more of a comfort level for these institutions, enterprise to come in and start? Yeah.
So that's exactly language I would have used. It's exactly so it's meeting corporates where they are. Yeah, I think many are not ready for certain data. They are even uncompliant to expose them in any hashed way on public chains. Yeah, think about pricing information. Yeah, you're not allowed to share pricing information with competitors. Yeah, so if it's on a public chain, what do I do with that? Yeah, so I think there's some real serious concerns that are, again, to be taken into account, and then you can meet them there. I mean, when I first heard about it, I thought we were in a way in an age that is beyond Hyperledger and private chains. Yeah. And not because I'm dogmatic about it, just because I mean, there are so many constraints about making them work, especially if you have collaboration across many different players in the supply chain or an ecosystem. But I really thought we were in a public chain is going to be the standard going forward. I think that subnet/private sphere or private chain that are interoperable, that allow actually to move.
What's interesting there, and let me pause that for a second and keep this in your head. He mentions private chain or private sphere, and this was it was a really cool interview. But this was a couple months before Hashgraph. For those of you guys that aren't aware, Swirlds Labs, which was like kind of the first governing council member of the Hedera network. Hedera, obviously, a bunch of enterprises governing council members, is now Hashgraph. Hashgraph has HashSphere, which is now essentially like privacy enabled network with like literally like customer service for enterprises and stuff. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds with that, but Urs essentially dropping the Sphere verbiage like a couple of months before Hashgraph officially announced HashSphere. So we weren't even talking necessarily about HashSphere in here. So I thought that was pretty interesting because he's going down that line of thinking, which I thought was just pretty cool. I'll keep playing this
as you get more comfortable, without any major, reconfiguration or refactoring into more public network approach. I think they are very interesting application to get corporates on board. Yeah? And that's so to say, I mean, Hashgraph again has been, I guess, quite early. I'm aware of a couple of projects, promising projects, with other layer ones that are going to very similar direction to cater to that need. Yeah, and by the way, that's one thing I found. Again, I spent most of my career building products using all kinds of technology, and the one dogma in my head is product market fit. And I've been shocked until today how little of that concept survives or is present in the crypto and blockchain community. Yeah. So I think it's so much coming from the zero knowledge proof. There's such cool technology. Hey, but this is not about foundational technology. It's about value. Yeah. And value means users use it, corporate users reap value from it, and you can take a reasonable cut from that. That's going to continue to be the reality. And so I think there is a trend at this level of very boring stuff, as you said, infrastructure, B2B services that are becoming that are meeting product needs of corporates. I can give you one other example from where I think, again, Hashgraph has been early to think about it and providing with every corporate they engage SLAs. Yeah, and that is something corporates know from traditional players. In SLA, you can understand, okay, downtime is one thing, But what happens if we have leakage? Yeah. So also reinsurances that they bake into their proposition is something that is very traditional enterprise, good old enterprise best practice, enterprise software best practice, and they're replicating this because this meets corporates, as you say, where they are. Yeah. So I think we definitely will see much more of that happening across the globe, and there will be a bit of a race. Yeah. Who's providing the more suitable service to enterprise?
Pretty interesting as well there. And again, I would say some of the things that I keep hearing over and over again, and I think Deloitte even mentioned that today during the interview I did, meeting users, where they're at, meeting corporates and enterprises where they're at. I think there's this narrative that we have heard throughout crypto that like there's this, I think I even bought into the narrative really early on. There's going to be like this switch that gets flipped. And at the end of the day, like you got to really think about it from a common sense standpoint. Enterprises and institutions don't give two shits about blockchain. What they care about is making money and solving problems to enable them to make more money, to streamline processes, whatever it may be. And where blockchain can win, as Urs mentioned, is whenever we can nail out product market fit with the technology and actually solve pain points, whether it be from an enterprise and institutional level or whether it be from a mass adoption level at, the you and I's of the world. That's when we start seeing mass adoption happen of the tech. And I think that we're getting there. We've seen much more mass adoption over the past 12 to 18 months than we've seen, over the prior probably 5 years combined. But it's not mass adoption yet. I mean, we still probably have 95% of the world that isn't even here yet. And I would argue that 100% of the world still isn't using blockchain in a way that is baked into their everyday life and everyday processes. And for us to get to that point, I think we're far away from that still, but blockchain is just going to be running under the hood of where we don't even, we're not talking right now about sending an email to somebody from Gmail to Yahoo Mail and being like, oh my God, isn't this amazing that these two different email platforms interoperate? And in crypto, we still do talk like that. So it just goes to show how early we are. I think it's super interesting. This BCGX one was, I would say, one of the, again, all of these interviews I think are really, really good. This one's also up on Genfinity's YouTube, probably back a little bit further. Here we go. So yeah, I mean, if you want to hear what real world adoption is looking like kind of at the institutional and enterprise level, go on and check out some of these interviews. Again, shout out to the Hashgraph Association, who obviously we work alongside those through Genfinity's end and helping to put together some of these enterprise driven interviews because they're pretty crazy. So I'm getting is this a storm alert? Hang on a second. Severe thunderstorms. All right, let me see if I can get one more out of the way here. And I've got such a gigantic backlog of content from interviews, guys, that if you guys like hearing from Boston Consulting Group and, huge institutions out of the Middle East and PricewaterhouseCoopers and PwC, and this is the type of stuff we're doing. I can split up and try to do some of these kind of breakdown videos because I already have a lot of the content because I do so much work on the content. And again, I apologize for not making as many videos. I'm literally usually so busy trying to coordinate interviews and all sorts of stuff. But last one I want to share with you guys is this is Ben Jorgensen from DC Blockchain Week. I hope I have this one edited. But I think that he gives a really good speech, and this was kind of the biggest DC blockchain event that we've kind of seen. Let me see if I can load it up real quick for you guys. So this was one of the biggest, this was the biggest DC blockchain event that we've seen. And there was so many like crazy individuals that were at this event. So this was in March, tail end of last month. There's Jorgensen right there, CEO of Constellation. Again, Genfinity works with Constellation alongside many other layer ones from the media standpoint. So make sure you're doing your own due diligence. But I'm just going to share some of this content, and you can look at, the sponsors. Their speakers are it was an insane amount of speakers. Like, you literally can click on this and probably can't even get through the whole list. I mean, tons of government entities here, individuals, senators, congressmen, and just go down the rabbit hole here. But I wanted to share this with you guys because I thought it was interesting. And then let me know if you guys like this content down in the comments, because I have a huge backlog of it.
My name is Ben Jorgensen. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Constellation. What we're seeing today is that nobody has any trust. We have misinformation coming into media. We don't trust our neighbors. We don't trust our government. We stand at a very fascinating inflection in our economic history. In 2025, humanity will create about 463 exabytes of data every day. In other words, we produce 6% of all sand on Earth every day. It's no longer about who has the most data. It's about who can transform abundant data into verifiable intelligence. By 2030, the global data economy is projected to be about $13 trillion, representing over 10% of the global GDP. There's about $5.7 trillion in unrealized abundance here. Gartner reports that executives don't even trust their data. So 83% of executives are using data to make decisions, and they don't even trust it. 3% of that data is actually being used and trusted. That's a huge gap. So let me offer a framework. As a resource becomes abundant, its unit value approaches zero, while the value of verification, authentication, and transformation of that resource goes to infinite. When information became abundant, individual facts lost their value, but the organization and verification of that information became one of the largest companies in the world, Google. Compliance transforms cost to asset. The cost of regulatory compliance in the US is substantial. Federal regulations cost the US economy around $3 trillion annually. That's 12% of the US GDP spent on compliance costs. This isn't really just about technology. It's about fundamentally reimagining how we create, capture, and redistribute value. But now with Constellation, we're able to do that. We have that infrastructure. So enter digital evidence. By leveraging Constellation's distributed ledger technology, developed in part with the US Department of Defense and I'm
going to pause here for 1 second and just kind of mention, I'll share a couple of things with you guys in a second here, but one of the things that kind of went live alongside this, and he might go over this a little bit, is so Constellation announced partnership and integration points with Panasonic North America. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months ago, somewhere around then. And what Panasonic North America essentially facilitates is they have hardware devices which are called Toughbooks, TOUGHBOOK. You can look it up. And I'll share a screen here in a second. Essentially used across like critical industry. You can think like healthcare, emergency services. You can think military. And one of the unique things of Constellation, which I do think is slept on from a technology standpoint, is the capabilities of metagraphs. And metagraphs are essentially like their own layer 1 networks built on top of the hypergraph, which is kind of the layer 0, or like the validation point. So, he doesn't go too deep into the Panasonic North America and Toughbook stuff here, but this is kind of baked into what's going on with digital evidence as well. It's kind of the first example of, where digital evidence, this kind of new product that they launched, is going to be taking place at. So I'll keep playing.
Verified by the Air Force Research Laboratory, we've created a system that transforms data from a liability requiring constant defense into an asset that creates compounding value. It takes raw inputs from emergency vehicles, Panasonic Toughbooks, operational systems, then transforms them into immutable, verifiable assets that create and carry inherently larger economic value. When we establish immutable, verifiable records for any form of data, we're not just solving compliance problems. We're creating the foundation for entirely new economic models. The most valuable companies of the next decade won't be those that accumulate the most data. It'll be those that effectively transform abundant data into authenticated intelligence that commands premium value in the marketplace.
So I'm going to leave us with this, but I think one thing that's really, we don't hear talk. We hear AI talked about a lot right now. We haven't even really scratched the surface globally as far as what's going to have to go on with regulations surrounding the data that's going into these, I would hope, regulations that are surrounding what's, the data that's going into these AI training models and things like that. Otherwise it gets pretty hairy. Like, I think a lot of people just use ChatGPT and they're like, oh, cool, I can type in whatever I want to ChatGPT and it gives me these awesome answers. Or it helps me to streamline my workflows or whatever, which it certainly does. But if you don't know what's going into the inputs for ChatGPT to be able to spit out an output when you put in an input, that's pretty scary, right? I'm sure maybe some of you have watched, The Social Dilemma and things like that, as far as a lot of the engineers within Facebook and Google and social media ended up kind of leaving for moral reasons. Because, there's models that were put into place that maximized people's attention spans. And those models also were, the engineers were basically saying, like, they were making people change their mindset slowly over time. So it's essentially like almost like hypnosis in a way, where it's making you think a certain way, very slowly and over time. And you can think of how scary while equally powerful that is. I think we're going to run into the same stuff with AI. So then you have to think about how important, certainly from Constellation's end and then across the board for all these networks, to be able to prove and verify and authenticate certain data points as society goes more and more digital. It's hard to imagine we go much more digital than we are right now, but we certainly are, especially with all this different technology converging. It's really hard to even tell what's real anymore, right? I did an interview with Dr. Lehman Baird, obviously inventor of Hashgraph distributed consensus algorithm, alongside John Woods from Algorand and Ben. And it was a DREC, or Decentralized Recovery Alliance podcast that we did maybe 4 months ago or so. And Lehman said, he's like, with artificial intelligence, there's no way getting around it. We're just going to have to digitally sign things. The way they're going to be able to verify something is real is by verifying the digital signature of the origin points of whatever you're trying to verify. So it's a wild society that we're getting to right now. I do think, a lot of this stuff ties into, like, what are the strengths of blockchain across all of these things that we talked about today. I think it comes down to efficiency and transparency and the ability to authenticate data. At the end of the day, all that we're talking about really is data. Financial transactions are data. Real world assets represented on chain are data. Digital documentation is data. So, I mean, yeah, the ESG and sustainability stuff that we heard about, the digital identity stuff, I mean, all this stuff is going to converge together. The society as a whole is just going to be so different. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. And then again, keep the notifications on, because I do have more of a deep dive, old school type thing to share with you guys tomorrow. But yeah, just we've done so much content. Again, I'll share just for a second here. Oh, so this is, I did pull this up. So this is DAG Explorer. This is just showing you the different metagraphs. So Federal, Door, which is DPIN, Alpaca, Social, Common Crawl, which I didn't even get into this, but another Constellation partnership that was probably late last year, maybe the beginning of this year. Common Crawl, essentially, talk about AI. You can look it up. I mean, like 95% of AI models in some way across the globe, in some way, shape, or form, leverage Common Crawl data, because Common Crawl essentially has an archive of the entire internet. It's like 9.5 petabytes of data or something crazy. They have a metagraph to just what we talked about, to authenticate data, and then Toughbook Connect. And then before I hop away from this, Panasonic Connect, and you can see the Toughbooks right here. You saw that metagraph on the DAG Explorer for Toughbook Connect. I mean, this is kind of a cool application of this technology, where it's like, okay, you have software, which is essentially the distributed ledger, which is, Constellation or the hypergraph, or in this case, the metagraph. You have software literally that can be embedded into hardware devices. Kind of ties in DPIN as well, obviously. But yeah, guys, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try to keep doing some more videos more consistently. I definitely recommend, like, if you're interested in, consistent, crazy kind of interviews and stuff like that are, we don't just do enterprise ones, but I feel like the enterprise ones are a kind of a pain point for an educational gap in this space, because I don't see many people doing them, like doing the enterprise interviews, like interviewing the Deloittes and Boston Consulting Groups and some of the C-levels within these layer ones either. And I think it's critically important because like as this technology gets more and more adopted and as it's embedded into our daily lives, like we have to hear the thought process behind what these enterprises or the solutions providers within these enterprises are actually thinking and what's actually being adopted and where we're seeing some wins and what we still need to work on. Otherwise, we're just running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And at the end of the day, like that just causes a lack of education, which causes poor decision making across the board. And again, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Go and do your own due diligence. But we've done a ton of interviews, and you can kind of run the gamut here and look through all of it. And same thing on Genfinity's YouTube channel, which is where we're just finally starting to upload them. So that being said, guys, stay tuned for tomorrow because it is a pretty crazy find. This is a much longer video than I thought, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Thanks. Bye.